So 2025 is officially over, and since I'm several days behind with this, I'm going to start doing my annual list of the movies that surprised me, disappointed me, were the best of the year, some of the worst of the year, and also the movies that I'm really looking forward to in the upcoming year. So it's going to take a few days to make all these videos. I'm going to do the surprises and the disappointments in two separate videos today. And so let's start off with the movies that actually surprised me. These were the movies that I had no interest in seeing. They looked dumb, they looked bland, they looked stupid, or I was just very concerned about what was going on with them. And to my surprise, they were actually decent. They were actually good. And I was like, or maybe it's just I had heard nothing about these movies prior, and then I saw them and was like, okay, I had a blast with them. So let's dive into some of these surprises. Let's get a few honorable mentions out of the way. First up is Sketch. This was an Angel Studios movie, which was a mystery screening when I saw it. And to my surprise, this movie is a lot darker than I expected from an Angel Studios movie. It's kind of reminded me of like 80s kids movies where it's like they were a little darker, they had a bit of an edge to them, and I definitely feel like this movie harkens back to that era a bit. The monster designs themselves are pretty cool. It does have a decent message, and I think this movie is definitely a lot darker, and I kind of, even though I have mixed feelings about Angel Studios overall, they at least make very interesting movies that I wouldn't expect from them. One of Them Days, Kiki Palmer and SZA's comedy about trying to find money by the end of the day. It made me laugh considerably. I had a good time with it. Who doesn't love Kiki Palmer? I'm not too big on SZA, but I haven't really heard a lot of her music. But she was really good in this movie. Kiki Palmer I thought was really funny in this movie. And I heard they're trying to do a sequel to this, which I don't know if I like that idea because I feel like sequels to comedies suck. But I do think this movie is a pretty fun time. Ash. This was a movie that was a sci-fi thriller that starred Aaron Paul and Isaac Gonzalez, and I thought it was very interesting. Kind of reminded me of Alien, maybe a little too much, but it was very atmospheric. It was definitely very interesting, and I'm definitely curious to see what Flying Lotus's career is going to be like after this movie. The Baltimoreans. This was a weird romantic comedy about a man who needs dental surgery on Christmas Eve, and the dentist who reluctantly agrees to give him the surgery and such, and they go on this weird adventure and such where they kind of connect and such. This was a weird but somewhat sweet movie. I thought it was like, that was kind of sweet, and I'm like kind of happy that I saw it. So if you haven't seen The Baltimoreans or haven't heard of it, I would give it a chance. Locked. This was a movie that featured Bill Skarsgård locked in a car for several hours while Anthony Hopkins tortures him. Anthony Hopkins making a speech that involves the Kardashians. That's going to get on my list no matter what. This movie is a pretty fun, tight thriller where basically the majority of the movie you have Bill Skarsgård locked in this car, and it's actually very well done. Anthony Hopkins is clearly having a lot of fun, even though he only really appears in like the last 10 minutes. This is a fun time overall. The Surfer. This was a movie that got mixed reviews overall, but I honestly kind of liked it. Nicolas Cage gives an absolutely batshit crazy performance as a surfer who's basically being taunted by these really annoying bros who are like saying the beach is ours and no outsiders are welcome and such. Nicolas Cage will do a lot of things in this movie. Except surf, ironically enough. But this is a very weird, trippy movie with decent performances and psychedelic visuals that are just out of this world. I will say that I didn't care for the ending too much. I felt like it could have wrapped up a little sooner. I felt like the movie itself kind of wanted to have its cake and eat it too with the ending, but overall, definitely a very interesting movie overall. Also, Eternity, the movie that stars Miles Teller, Elizabeth Olsen, and Callum Turner as these three people in the afterlife. Elizabeth Olsen was married to Miles Teller's character and Callum Turner's character at some point, and she must choose which eternity she's going to spend with, which husband she's going to live with, and such. And the movie tries to play it both ways, and I think it does work overall. I do think it's very funny. I do think it's very sweet. You do understand from both sides, like, why she would want to choose these guys and such, and it's actually very interesting. Also, I do think the world building of the afterlife is very interesting. Although I would complain if it was like if I had to go to work in the afterlife, like I feel like that would just be kind of annoying. But other than that, I do think this is a very cute movie overall. And also the last honorable mention is going to be Predator Killer of Killers. Now I knew Predator Badlands was going to come out, but I didn't know Dan Trachtenberg was going to make this other Predator movie. That was going to be an anthology movie with all of these like different stories involving the Predator. But it was decently animated. There were definitely some unique stories. I kind of wanted to see them fleshed out a little bit more. But I'm glad we got two good Predator movies in one year. Whereas like whenever a Predator movie doesn't come out, whenever a Predator movie does come out, it's usually not that good these days. But I'm glad we're getting decent Predator movies again. So let's get into my actual top 10 biggest surprises of 2025. At number 10, Dangerous Animals. This was a movie that only played for like a couple weeks, but this movie was a lot of fun. A very tight thriller involving Jai Courtney as this very crazed man who kidnaps these girls on this boat and such. And it is a very intense thriller. You do care about the characters quite a bit. You kind of don't know where it's going. It is a blast to watch. At number 9 is Hard Eyes. This was a movie that looked stupid from the beginning, like a Valentine's Day themed serial killer and such. But to my surprise, I found the movie to be a lot of fun. I definitely looked at it more as a comedy than I did as a horror movie, and I think it works better as a comedy. I do think the characters have a lot of chemistry. I do think the kills are brutal. I do think it is at least embracing the fact that it is cheesy and ridiculous. While I don't really like the killer reveal itself, I still found this movie to be a lot of fun. Maybe I'll watch it around Valentine's Day. At number 8, Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, I was not a fan of the Final Destination series. Well, mainly because I only saw the first one, and I said to myself, yeah, that's enough for me. I don't need to see the other ones. So I decided, before this one came out, stupidly, I was going to rewatch all of them again. And then, there are aspects of the Final Destination series I do like, some creative moments in each movie, but I'm not really a big fan of them because I feel like they just kind of are repetitive. And this movie, I was not looking forward to it. But to my surprise, this movie actually did a few things that I actually was surprised by. In the sense that I thought, like, the whole crux of the whole movie, like, normally they have, like, the big thing that kind of causes all these deaths initially. And I kind of like how they play with that in this movie. I also do like the characters a little bit more. I do think the deaths are very creative and over the top and such. And it's not just people who are supposed to die in an event and such. I do think that adds a lot more mystery to it. It adds a lot more suspense to the whole story of Final Destination. I thought this movie was quite a bit of fun. Also has a great send-off for Tony Todd and his character. R.I.P. Tony Todd. At number 7, Zootopia 2. Now, why is the second biggest movie of the year on my biggest surprises list? Because, in my opinion, whenever Disney makes a sequel, it winds up being terrible. I did not like Wreck-It Ralph 2, I did not like Frozen 2, and I did not like Moana 2. So I was dreading kind of going into Zootopia 2 because Zootopia 1, I love. I loved the first Zootopia movie. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the world building. I love a lot of that movie, and I was worried that the sequel was just going to kind of rip it apart and just not give me what I wanted. Well, this movie actually did. It actually had a really good message. The voice acting, once again, great. The characters, once again, are great. The world building is not only good in this movie, but it's expanded upon. And I thought it was actually really sweet and really funny. I actually wanted to see this movie again, which I haven't really said about a lot of Disney movies as of late. So I would definitely recommend Zootopia 2, surprisingly. At number 6 is Christie. This movie was another one of those blink and you miss it movies. It was another one of those mystery movies when I saw it. And again, I'm not really the biggest fan of Sydney Sweeney. I mentioned that in my Housemaid review. But in this movie, I thought she did a great job. I thought she was really good as Christy Martin. I thought Ben Foster as her ex-husband is just disgusting and evil and such. And there was one point in the movie where it's like, who is this actor playing this guy? And then I saw the credits like, oh, it's Ben Foster? He completely disappeared in this movie. You are disturbing in this movie. I do think this is a very decent movie that kind of flew under the radar because of several controversies, and also I feel like this movie deserved a lot more than it actually got. At number 5, Blue Moon, one of Richard Linklater's movies from this year, which I didn't review, unfortunately. Some of these movies I realized I didn't review, but oh well. At number 5, Blue Moon, which I thought was a very unique movie with Ethan Hawke playing this playwright who doesn't really like his life, who finds a new muse, and it kind of plays a lot like an actual stage play, which I thought was very fascinating. And I thought his performance was incredible. I thought Bobby Cannavale was pretty good. Margaret Qualley was pretty good as well. I personally like this movie a little bit more than Richard Linklater's other movie, but I think more because I saw it in the movie theater rather than on my television and such. But I definitely think if you have not seen Blue Moon, I would definitely check it out. At number 4, The Long Walk. When I heard this movie was going on, I was like, this movie sounds really stupid. Like, how are you going to make walking intense? How are you going to make this movie work and such? And to my surprise, oh boy, this movie is brutal to watch. This movie has decent performances, particularly from Cooper Hoffman, from David Johnson. Pretty much all the young actors are great in this movie. I do like the whole brotherhood aspect of the movie and how it is kind of like a war movie in a weird way. It is a very brutal movie. It is a very powerful movie that I will never watch again. And even though I feel like there are some character aspects of the movie that I feel like could have been established a little bit better, and also Mark Hamill could have been a better villain in this movie, I still think this is one of the better Stephen King adaptations this year. I'd like this one probably more than Life of Chuck and The Monkey, and definitely more than Running Man. At number 3, The Naked Gun. Now, I do enjoy the Naked Gun movies, not as much as, say, Airplane and such, but And when I heard they were trying to do a new Naked Gun movie, I was like, okay, where are you gonna go with this? Liam Neeson as the new Frank Drebin, okay. And to my surprise, after that first trailer dropped with that one O.J. Simpson joke, I was like, immediately sold. This movie was absolutely funny. I was actually surprised that they didn't give away the best jokes in the trailer. That is honestly really hard these days. And I feel like after so many years of development hell, it's like this movie actually surprisingly worked. It was a lot of fun. It was really funny. Liam Neeson committed to the bit. So did Pamela Anderson. I thought they were really good in this movie. It was a blast to watch. I saw it twice in theaters. And number two is Friendship, the Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd, surreal dark comedy about a friendship that's just gone wrong. This movie is absolutely insane from beginning to end. It is a blast. It is fun. It is dark. It is silly. I was laughing throughout this entire movie. It's strangely relatable in some way. Now, I haven't seen a lot of Tim Robinson's work. I knew he was on SNL for a few years. I only just started watching some of his sketches from I Think You Should Leave. And I do want to watch his show, The Chair Company, which is from the same creator as Friendship. So I'm curious to see like how this kind of like helps expand Tim Robinson's career and such. I thought he was really good in this movie. So was Paul Rudd. I would argue Kate Mara was fine. The other actors were just fine, but it's mainly the two leads that I thought were really good. But the one movie that really surprised me this year, the one movie that took everyone by storm, was surprisingly K-pop Demon Hunters. This movie, okay, I'm sorry, I did not review this movie. I kept forgetting about it. I kept pushing it off, and I'm like, I'll review it eventually. But the music is incredible. The characters are well written. I do think the animation is just absolutely gorgeous. I think this movie is very fascinating, very unique, and I'm glad that this movie kind of just exploded the way that it did. Crossed over to several different new it basically kind of like expanded across different places, like, you know, obviously on Netflix. It played in movie theaters. The music is topping the charts and such. I think this movie, I'm surprised that this movie kind of had like this global takeover that was like actually really fascinating. And for a decent animated movie to do that like this, to come out of nowhere with no promotion whatsoever, I'm glad about that. And I think this movie, I'm excited to see what this movie is going to do in the future. Are they going to make a sequel to it? I heard they are, and will it be in theaters and such at first? Who knows? So those are my picks for the biggest surprises of 2025. I apologize that I didn't review some of these, like make actual videos for them, but it's mostly due to timing more than anything. But I will also be talking about the movies that I was looking forward to until I saw them. So look out for that video very shortly. What were some of the biggest surprises for you this past year? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and stay safe.